Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for news stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet, and let's get started. What was the most lucrative reason someone at your place of employment was let go? Part 7. My dad has a small handyman company with less than a handful of employees. When he's at a construction site, his tools seem to have an inclination to grow legs, so he makes sure to write his name in permanent marker on everything. Soon after he hired a new person one day, his folding ruler vanishes. He looks around to see if anyone's seen his folding ruler, but nobody appears to have. He doesn't give it much thought because misplaced items do happen. The following day, he spots the new employee holding what appears to be a folding ruler. He requests to view it. The new hire declines. Dad demands that he show him the ruler and declares that he is his boss. He gives in when pressed. My dad's name is, indeed, there in bold and capital letters. Now, if he had just said, "Oh, my bad," there probably wouldn't have been any consequences because that could have been an honest error. The incorrect one must have been in my pocket. This is your ruler. However, the new hire insisted that this was his ruler and that the name on the side was a note he had written to himself to remember my dad's name rather than my dad's handwriting. The fact that my dad's company pays for his employees' tools just adds to the absurdity. Instead, he needs to steal the boss's folding ruler and make up the most ridiculous lie imaginable to justify his actions. If he had just asked for a folding ruler, my dad would have given it to him for free. Edit. For those of you who think that your father fires people for picking up tools for €3, 1, if you work with crafts by hand, you're probably already aware of the unique significance of your tools. 2, trust plays a big part as well. There will be times when one of my dad's employees is left alone in someone else's house. That doesn't go well with treating other people's property with such disrespect. My father has a great deal of faith in both his current and past workers. He regularly gives his staff members cars and tools to use for personal projects like moving. In addition, he has assisted many former workers in launching their own companies, and once they do, he welcomes them to visit and utilize the unique equipment he's accumulated over the years, which is typically unavailable for startups. Thus, please, if you're still not persuaded that this isn't a power play, F off. Although I didn't fire this individual, my boss, with whom I was friendly, told me everything about it after it had occurred. I was a newspaper employee in a small town. I arranged all the images and text on the pages by pagination. Rarely the writers would sit down with me and we would work on the layout together because they wanted a story to be presented in a certain way. One day Joe, one of the writers, wanted assistance in organizing a story. A low-income dental clinic that had just opened the day before was the subject of this last-minute story. A select group of people received complimentary dental work as part of their grand opening celebration. As a result, it should come as no surprise that the individuals they selected had very poor dental health and had neglected their teeth for decades. He pointed to the 3 photos he had selected to include when I opened the cloud folder containing all of our weekly photos. 3 images depicted the clinic's exterior, the 2 dentists who ran it, and a row of really ugly teeth. Joe insisted that I center the design around my teeth, but I felt really uneasy about that. Firstly, do you want to see mangled teeth during those times when most people read the paper, right after dinner or while eating breakfast? Secondly, it appeared impolite to place the mouth of an unknown guy there. "Is it a stock photo or something?" I asked, as Joe persisted in saying it was all right. It was not impossible. Occasionally, we use stock photos for more general stories. Joe simply replied, "Yes, it's a stock photo. Please include it." He laughed and nodded when I even told him, "Okay, this is all on you if we get angry phone calls." The text that appeared directly beneath a photo in the paper is called the cut line. Usually I wrote those since most authors either forgot to write them or were just too lazy. Mostly too lazy. So I wrote one. Joe told me, lending a helping hand. 5 lucky people had free dental work to celebrate the clinic's opening, was what I wrote, something generic. Joe came back up to examine the situation and exclaimed, "No, we need to say something hilarious. Write something like this. A cautionary tale. Keep up your dental hygiene if you don't want your gob to look like this poor fella." I included it again because I was informed that this was a stock photo. I went home after it went to press. Since this was a weekly publication, I worked from Sunday through Wednesday and then took Friday and Saturday off. I was shocked to receive a call on Thursday afternoon from the editor, who's my boss. He continued, "So, do you remember putting Joe's story in the paper yesterday?" As soon as I said yes, I knew he would inquire about the mouth photo. I told him it was a bad idea to use that photo because it was so gross. If we received irate phone calls, yes, from the owner of those teeth, my boss said. When the dental work was finished, Joe, who was friends with the guy, asked to have a before photo taken. I explained that Joe had told me it was a stock photo, that I had repeatedly stated that I didn't want the photo in the paper, and that I felt just as bad about the whole thing as he did. The guy asked, "You're not going to put this in the paper, are you?" To which Joe replied, "No, of course not." "Yes, that's what I figured," my boss replied. My boss, who usually took Sundays off, came up to me a few minutes after I arrived on Sunday. He informed me that the man had threatened to sue if we didn't fire Joe and apologize. Thus, it goes without saying that Joe was let go. It was the second time someone had been let go from there in 50 years. I'm a retail employee. In my store, this has recently occurred. Didn't see the firing happen, but I did see what led up to it. One evening, as I was trying to do my job several lanes away, the now former colleague was obviously loitering in the store and distracting 2 of his friends who were on the clock. I didn't give it much thought because it's a rather quiet evening in the store and I'm concentrating on my work. Because there aren't many patrons, the on-duty manager initially overlooks this. However, after about 45 minutes, she's had enough and instructs the former employee to leave. He gives her no attention. When she repeats it to him, he yells that he will run her over with his bike. It's not a good look to waste 2 of his friends' time at work in the first place, but what really made it worse was his threat of workplace violence. Manager correctly reports it, and after reviewing the camera footage and questioning witnesses, including me, which I was nervous about, but my testimony was backed up by the camera footage and I was immediately exonerated for not escalating the whole mess, the store director first suspended him and then fired him, which I did not witness but heard about on the floor. Share your horrible experiences/story from living in an HOA, condominium, or with jerk neighbors. Part 7. I will never purchase a condo or property with a homeowners association ever again. They are your landlord. They rank higher than you, even though you believed you had purchased the property. Our 6-year-old condo association with 19 units had roof leaks in other units. Consequently, the board squandered tens of thousands of dollars on legal counsel to pursue settlement of pennies on the dollar with the GC, architect, and bankrupt roofing company. Then they ejected us from our exclusive roof decks for a purported 3-week roof replacement, which ended up taking 4 months. We missed the entire summer, from June to September. We weren't given priority. The contractors only came in with a few hours a week, and the board wouldn't press them. According to the lawyers we spoke with, you can be ejected from your own apartment. In the event that you rented an apartment, you would be entitled to reimbursement from the landlord. However, you receive nothing as the owner. You'll have to hold off on trying to appoint a new board until after the next election. After that, we fought them to fix the new leaks that their contractor had created throughout the fall and winter. Coincidentally, 3 of the 4 board members listed their apartments for sale following the election and a massive backlog of maintenance because the previous board misused maintenance funds for personal projects. Dues are up 50%, and we've had 3 special assessments, not including the roof. We're only here until the construction of our new location outside the city. Several international students are renting a house on my street. Despite having 3 bedrooms, the house is occupied by at least 8 or 9 people. They consistently visit the beach to fish and gather abalone during the off-season, disregarding the established regulations on bag limits and minimum sizes. I gave them a fisheries department pamphlet that detailed the season, minimum sizes, and bag limits for each species. I was told to keep my mouth shut. A fisheries officer discovered them and fined them. They thought I was in charge of the fisheries officer visiting the area and doing an inspection, which I wasn't. They decided that my bins were a great way to get rid of their abalone shells and fish waste. Since I don't want to deal with the smell of fish or shellfish on a day that's about 35 degrees Celsius, I asked them to stop using my bins. They feigned ignorance until I showed them my security camera footage. Then they used my mailbox as a bin and left a nice shellfish in there, basically ruining the mail that was inside. I called the Department of Immigration after deciding that enough was enough, leaving an anonymous tip that they were violating their visa requirements concerning their right to work. Turns out I was correct, and 3 of them were deported while the remaining ones were evicted for violating the property's maximum occupancy restrictions and renting out the rooms to other people without the homeowner's consent. My mother was on the board in SoCal. An 8-unit building's roof had been removed in preparation for replacement. The contractor had even checked the weather, but as usual, nothing was predicted. However, on the second day, an incredible downpour developed. The building was promptly covered and tarped by the contractor, but some water damage did happen. After the contractor had a few days to evaluate the damage, devise a strategy, and resume work on the roof, one of the unit owners, let's call him Adam, refused to grant us access. He then hired an attorney who filed a lawsuit against us right away and obtained an injunction prohibiting us from entering the building. Due to the extended period of time it was covered, the HOA eventually had to pay more for both additional damage repair and lodging for the affected unit owners. After looking over the lawsuit, the insurance company decided to pay Adam a settlement without really looking into the specifics. He thus won, and that's exactly what he told everyone. Meanwhile, the HOA lawyer informed the board that they were not permitted to talk about settlements. As a result, the narrative went that Adam had won against the powerful HOA and had even gone on to be elected to the board. The truth? 4 months later, the attorney was disbarred due to unethical behavior stemming from numerous other allegations. He and Adam had already engaged in a number of pointless insurance-related activities. Adam continued to post and invited a friend. They attempted to start harassing and suing vendors in addition to doing more actions along these lines. My mother and I sold our house. It was her first house ever, acquired after 25 years. Adam, I detest you. God. Therefore, insurance will almost always settle. This may give the impression that someone won, but what it actually means is that the resolution was reached as quickly as possible rather than solving the problem. I try to keep in mind this. What is the real result you want before attempting to involve a homeowners association in a lawsuit? Make every effort to clarify, convey, and attempt to settle that out of court. If not, the lawyers stand to gain the most. I made the mistake of buying a 3-story townhouse in an HOA and was elated to sell it after 5 years. Although my end unit had a great view of the Rocky Mountains, I didn't like the sound of footsteps and vibrations on the floor from the apartment next door. The beauty of living in a single-family home without sharing walls should not be undervalued. Our board was primarily made up of an elderly man with no construction experience who had a sketchy past and occasionally failed to show up at all. The board neglected to hire roof snow removal one year, and in the same year, it sent letters to owners reminding them that roofs were common elements owned by the HOA and that we were not allowed to go on them. I had to hire an attorney to help interpret my CCRs, and he encouraged me to send the board a cease and desist letter when it kept billing me for roof repairs from damage caused by melting and refreezing snow and ice. The laws governing my HOA were last updated in 1989, having been written in the 1940s. You can therefore imagine how things have changed between then and 2023. I suppose that during that entire period, they've decided that it's not necessary to update the bylaws and have instead chosen to break the law whenever they please. They put me through a lot of hardship and put my neighbor and I in a situation where we both received eviction notices as a result of their actions. I have a ton of supporting documentation and proof that the manager and neighbor, who is regarded as a member of the HOA, broke multiple laws while I was renting the property. They want to be nice and try to meet the demands after I threatened to sue them and sent a demand letter a few weeks ago for compensation. Correct. The HOA was found guilty on all counts following the trial. I had excellent information about them and their behavior. The fines and legal costs are very high. The 3 former board members are currently attempting to quickly sell their homes in order to cover all expenses. I received generous compensation. A new HOA board was also chosen. We're currently updating the entire set of bylaws. I predict some significant positive changes. If you want to watch the part 6, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.